Welcome to a new Lightroom editing session. This time we are editing this interior nursery photo. So this style is great for bloggers, for anyone that does their own website, great for people who are doing real estate photography. So really there's a style of editing here to make everything bright and a little bit bold, warm, nice colors. So we're starting with this photo on the left if you want to follow along. It's the interior nursery photo. And this is of our nursery for my twin boys. This is the cleanest you'll ever see it. This is before they were born. And so let's dive right into it. So the first thing I always do is play with the crop. Now the crop and the angle of this photo is kind of wacky. It's because we are using such a wide lens, which is typical in interior space photography. When you have a small space and you want to make things look bigger, you use a wide lens. The problem, though, is you get these bowed lines of the walls and just of everything really in your photo. And so there's a couple things you can try to do, and I'll do that first before we actually crop. But automatically, there's a couple things that bug me that I definitely want to get rid of, like the ceiling line right here that I don't like. But there are some things I'm just going to have to live with. A little bit of that bowed edge is going to be impossible to remove and make it look good. You might say, okay, Phil, go down to your transform tool, take your upright tool, draw a couple of straight lines for the things you want to be straight lines. We want that to be a straight line. We want that to be a straight line. We want our cribs to be straight lines. We want our dresser to be a straight line. And yes, when we do this and we constrain to crop, everything is a straight line, but it's so warped that it doesn't look good. So we are going to delete that and undo our upright. We're just going to click off. There's another thing we can try to do, which is enable profile corrections. Now, if you use a camera and a lens that is a smart lens and a smart camera, it will know what we used, which was a Tokina 11 to 16 millimeter lens. It was about at 11 millimeters, so the widest it goes. Now, doing this does a couple things. It tries to unwarp the bend that we get around the edges. It also improves the vignetting. For this photo, I don't like the vignetting, so I'm actually going to boost the vignetting here even more. Now, when I do this, it makes the edges, it increases basically the exposure of the edges, which is different than going to the effects and adding a white vignette or a light vignette. That's not the style I'm going for. I just want to make the edges a little bit brighter. We can also go in here to the distortion and try to basically unwarp even more, but it's not really doing much. So I'm going to have to live with, in this image, these bowed lines. What I can do to make it better is crop it a little bit. So I'm actually going to use a 16:9 crop for two reasons. One, it's easier to crop out that top. Just because it's a little bit skinnier, and also because I don't need the full image in this shot. All of the detail, all the information I want to show is in this 16:9 frame. We have the top of these pictures all the way down to the bottom of this quilt on the crib. All this information down here I don't really need in my frame, so I'm happy with something like this. Now, what I do want to do is try leveling a little bit. Now, what should be level? For me, what is most important is this dresser and these picture frames right here. I want those to be as level as possible. Now, if I do that to the dresser, the picture frames look completely off. So let's try the picture frames. If we do that, that looks a little bit better. So I'm, again, going to have to live with the dresser being off. And that's because I took this photo at a little bit of an angle. It wasn't straight onto the wall. So that's something, if you are taking the photos yourselves, pay attention to those things, because if it's going to bug you in post, you definitely want to make sure that you're fixing it while you are photographing it. So I'm actually going to play around with it custom. I want to get the entire top of this as much as possible in this curtain rod. Actually, I'm going to bring back down a little bit. I think this quilt is a little bit more important. Cool. So that's looking good. Next, on to our exposure. So that was a lot with the angle and crop, which I usually don't spend too much time on. First things first, I'm going to bring up the shadows. I'm going to bring up the highlights. Now for this style of edit, I don't care about something being overexposed. This light coming through the window, it's just going to be overexposed, but it's a style I don't mind. So I brought down the blacks just a little bit to bring back some of that contrast. Now overall, I'm actually going to drop clarity. I want this to have a little bit of a sort of dreamy quality, soft quality, and that's because this is a nursery photo. If this was a photo of your man cave or your rock band stage, you might want to boost clarity, but for this, boosting clarity doesn't work. I want to drop clarity. In terms of vibrance saturation, I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to play with the colors individually, but I might go up here and boost the warmth just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's already pretty warm because the light coming in from this curtain was pretty warm, but I do just want to boost warmth just a little bit. I'll keep my tone curve for later just in case I want to add any contrast, but I do want to add some color and saturation, especially to this teal and the blue in this poster to make that pop. So I'm going to take my saturation picker, click in that teal, boost that. And now that I see that the aqua and blue are being selected, I can just go in there and drag those up and down. I might go into the map over here and see if there's any other colors that are being boosted, and that's the green. So now I can go into my sliders and kind of one at a time boost those. Now this color of this pillow, it's a little dark, so I could go into my luminance and see if that helps. And it does a little bit, and it's not really affecting much else, so I don't mind doing that. I could also just use a little brush and brush over this with a range mask for that color and boost that a little bit more. Cool, so overall, looking good. The bottom half of this image is a little bit darker than the top half, especially this quilt right here, which I want to make a little bit more pronounced and easier to see, not just in the shadows. So I'm going to use a graduated filter, click and drag up to select the bottom half, just checking to make sure, and then I'm just going to bring up the shadows. When I bring up the shadows, I'm going to also bring back down my blacks just to keep that contrast, but that's looking pretty darn good. So now with this on and off, you can see overall, the exposure for the entire room looks pretty even. We don't have a dark bottom like we did before. Cool, so that's looking pretty good. Now, and that also helps with the pillow as well. So let's click done. One thing that I lose when I am increasing the exposure like I did is a little bit of the detail in these images up here of these animals. So I'm actually going to use a brush with auto mask on, and I'm going to increase the contrast and play with the exposure of these animals. So let's just click in here, try to select the elephant. It won't matter too much if you get a little bit of the white as well, and the reason is because we're just going to be playing with the blacks and the shadows, and it shouldn't really affect the white background of these images too much. So see here in the zebra, how I'm selecting some parts that are in the background. That's totally fine. Same with this giraffe. It should be fine. If not, we'll fix it later. Now that went a little bit too far, so I'm going to go erase that top half, or that little top brush. Now this is just something very subtle. It's not a huge difference, but let's turn off our mask overlay. Let's bring down our blacks. Automatically bringing down the blacks makes these animals pop out. We're going to bring up the clarity. Also makes them pop. Also bring up the saturation. Again, makes them pop. Highlights or whites, let's just boost those as well. That's looking pretty good. So let's zoom out, turn this on and off, pay attention to the animals, just makes them pop a little bit more. Now you can do something similar with these animals down here. We could even just take our brush, maybe turn down the density, and brush over our animals down here. Turn on our mask overlay to see what we're selecting. All right, go off. And now let's turn off and on. Pay attention to the animals in the bottom left. pretty darn good. Now with these ones on the left, we might want to go in and just do a little radial filter. Invert it to select what's inside, and we'll bring up the overall exposure just a little bit. Just kind of highlighting this quilt right here. Cool, that's good. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do. I'm going to go back, play with my contrast. I'm going to add a little bit of medium contrast overall just to make things pop a little bit more, and that's looking pretty good. The last thing I'm going to do, which I don't do often, is go into our color profiles. Now, because this is sort of a blog style photo, something to go on social media, sometimes making the colors a little bit more creative can help. So if you go in here, you have all kinds of different filters basically that you can add that play with the overall colors. So what you can do, you have your camera matching filters. These are the ones that within your camera, each camera is different, but they have these different color profiles, such as faithful, landscape, neutral. And if you just hover over these, you can see what they do in the image. Nothing happens unless you click it. If I go down, you have more. These are some more sort of specific ones. And I'm going to choose Modern 4. The colors stay relatively the same. It just adds a little bit, I don't know what it is. It's kind of actually making it not as warm. It's just making things a little bit brighter too, which can happen when you play with the colors, and I like that. So I'm going to click that. And now if I go up or close this, what you see here at the top of your basic settings is this slider. So if I drag this down or drag it to the right, it increases or decreases sort of the strength of this effect. So that's something that you can do at the very end, or you can also do at the beginning, which is a good idea too, before you play around with your own colors too much. But it could be something at the end that you just kind of throw on there as a final filter. Most people will say that you should actually play with it in the beginning, but I just knew that when I was editing this first, that I played with those at the end, and I like that kind of final filter that I added. I hope you did too, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to let me know. I would love to see your edit for this photo, and of course, all the photos that you're editing on your own. So make sure you post some of them to the course. Make sure you post them to social media, to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever. You can find me at Phil Ebiner or at Video School Online on most of those platforms. And tag me and make sure that I check it out, and I definitely will, and let you know what I think. Awesome. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial, and we'll see you in another one.